Like the first thing I remember thinking when I said I was going to stop drinking was, what am I going to do on my wedding? Right? I wasn't engaged. I wasn't in a relationship with anyone, but that's often what we first go to.
Welcome back to the first episode of 2022.
Happy New Year! Oh my God, Azul. Is this not the cutest he's ever been?
You guys, he's being extra cute today. Also, I just got back from Ashley's family's Christmas. I have never heard so many dog voices. Y'all's dog voices all together. It's so funny. We had like 5 dogs at one point, and everyone's dog voices.
5? At the point where there was 5, I was like, is Raina going to be okay?
One of them also was named Bella, and I couldn't figure out whose dog that was. You just kept yelling Bella, and I was like, who is
not
that?
Even our dog. When Bella ruined my nap, when I had that glorious Christmas Day nap, and like every 20 minutes I would just wake up and be like, Bella, shut up. Because she's
Mom! I opened my eyes and you were fully under a blanket. We were trying to watch the new Sex in the City, and your mom didn't know HBO, so we both powded and went to sleep.
That Christmas, that was like that really warm day. That's breeze. The door was open. I was catching a breeze. It was the best nap I've ever had. But Bella tried to ruin it.
She kept screaming about Bella, and I didn't realize that dog's name was Bella for like a full 24 hours.
You thought our assistant was there?
That's her cum sound. Bella.
Well, yeah, Azul just got his full groom yesterday. My brother was roasting me on how hairy his butt was, so he got totally trimmed up, and I have a bikini wax today, and I am dreading it because it has been so long. My bush looks like a merkin down there. Like, it's just not. It's like long again. It's like straight.
The motion you just did. We haven't done a bush update in a while.
Well, I had COVID, and we had our shows. Like, this has been pre-holiday shows. We're recording the day before New Year's Eve. What, I guess I just could have said the 30th, but
best day.
And I'm just, maybe gonna get laid New Year's Eve. No idea by who. Have you ever thought, like, I'm really trying to get laid, but no idea who it could be by? What a fun Russian roulette.
That's my life right now.
Okay, this episode is brought to you by BetterHelp Therapy Online. For 10% off your first month, go to betterhelp.com/GGE. Start living a better life today. So it is very easy to get caught up in what everyone else needs from you and never take a moment to think about what you need from yourself. But when we spend all of our time giving, it can leave us feeling stretched thin and burnt out. And therapy can give you the tools to find more balance in your life, which we could all use. And you can keep supporting others while you support yourself at the same time. And therapy in general can help with so many things, but it's helpful for learning positive coping skills, how to set boundary, empower yourself to be the best version of yourself for yourself and others. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You'll just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Super simple. It's really worth a try, guys. To find more balance with BetterHelp, visit betterhelp.com/GGE today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/GGE.
Okay, guys, thanks for starting 2022 with us.
Yay!
This is so exciting. We took last week off. We're excited to be back with you. We're excited for an amazing year with you.
I can't wait. I'm Ashley.
I am Raina.
And this is a comedy podcast about sex, dating, and relationships. And if you're new here, welcome. If you're hate listening, thank you.
Double welcome.
Double welcome, because we know you listen twice. And yeah, we're just ready for such a good year. And we love you guys so much, and we're glad you're here again.
Yes, welcome back. Welcome for the first time. We are excited for a great year of shows, the podcast, live shows. I mean, what a gift to be able to do live shows with you again in 2021 and laugh with you guys. And I just missed you so much, so it was such a gift to be able to do that. So thank you guys. What should we talk about first? Christmas at the Hesseltimes?
Yeah, let's do it. No, I have a couple things. Okay. Couple questions for you.
Doing this now?
Have you donated to Wikipedia yet this year?
No, not yet. Well, actually, it's still this year. So yes, in 2021, I have donated to Wikipedia.
You did, because they started their pop-up like last week where you can't ignore it. They're like, you give us $2.75.
You know, I gotta tell you, I have not been in these Wikipedia streets recently. I feel like I just know everything. Like normally I use it to win every argument. I haven't been in these streets for like a month. We've been busy.
I was looking up something so random and I was on Wikipedia and they were like, pay us. And I'm like, say less.
I pay them.
Yeah. Oh, always.
Okay. So when was the last time you donated?
Yesterday.
Okay.
No, they do it at the end of the year. They really they know how to get you. They're like, do not scroll past this. If you're using this, you owe us $2.75.
If they put it over the personal relationships section of Wikipedia, which is where I go directly to the personal life, I always just have to know like who people have been fucking. That's exactly what I use to win most arguments. If they just blocked that out, I would donate every time.
Okay, so that was my one thing. I have a serious confession. I just want to get out of the way. I am no longer hate watching Emily in Paris. I like it for real. And I don't know what happened. It happened midway through season 2. And I was like, I like it for real. Like, listen, nothing's changed. The acting's bad. The writing's, I mean, it's so
the fashion and the way it's shot.
So I don't know. I think I just leaned in. Like I was talking about with Sally, who is somebody that we work with, and she was like, the writing is just so blunt. There's no nuance. And I'm like, right, it's so unrealistic. The things happen so quickly. There's no setup for anything. But I kind of started to appreciate it. Like, you're like, this would never happen in real life. No one would ever wear this in real life. No one would ever say this. This would never happen. All these characters wouldn't be connected in real life. But, and again, whatever. I think Lily Collins is like a fun watch. I think she's not the best actress in the world. And I don't want that show to win Emmys. Don't get it twisted. I was so insulted that it was like up for Emmys. And then they kind of found out they like brought all the Emmy people to Paris, like whatever. I just leaned in and I like embraced the cheesiness, and her outfits are ridiculous, but like you just started to be like, fuck it, this costume design is fun. And all the guys are so hot. This new character season 2, this guy Alfie is just the biggest smoke on earth. And I just was like, I fucking love this show.
Okay, I'm glad that you finally came to the table with a real confession, because I confessed to fucking an anti-vaxxer last week.
Oh my God. But I finished it and I was like, I missed it, which, that's how I know I really like a show. And then people I don't think this is going to happen, but people are speculating that Kim Cattrall might come on Emily in Paris.
I saw that.
Which would just make everybody's world. Also, I almost feel like how terrible and just like that is making me appreciate other shows. Like it's like when you break up with a shitty ex and you date someone worse and you miss your shitty ex.
That's a perfect analogy. I know. And just so you guys know, Ashley and I are still hate watching that show.
Yeah.
And then one last thing, I started Sex Education. I finally did it. So I'm 4 episodes in. It's very nice. Yeah, Christmas at the Heseltines. I finally got to do it. I didn't get to go last year, which was so sad for me, but it was great. And Matt Heseltine sent me a text that did say the word love in it. And I was like, oh my God, it's happening.
Oh my
God. He said, we all love having you around.
Okay.
That's not the same thing. Not the same thing at all. But no, I mean, I love it. I love being a part of your family, and it's really special and fun. And it's always just a really wonderful time for me.
It was good. It was a little bit smaller. Hopefully next year we'll be at full capacity at Christmas, but we did do the appetizer contest, and let's just say it. You did beat Stephanie.
I did beat Stephanie.
Neither of you won, which Matt won, which was, I feel like Matt continues to get insulted that everyone was so surprised, but he did win. I mean, the seafood usually wins. That's the trick.
Shrimp has won the last 3 years, and I did think I was going to do a shrimp thing, but I was running late, and I conceptualized this thing on my way down, and I was like, that'll be quick, easy. I knew it was a mistake. I knew I should have gone shrimp.
If you guys are new here, my family does an appetizer contest every Christmas Eve, and Raina's nemesis is my sister-in-law.
Who couldn't be more wonderful.
The sweetest human on earth.
So
but Raina's been trying to beat her all these years. Have you beat her before? Or is this the first time you actually beat her?
I think the very first year, Stephanie took a crescent roll and like rolled it into a Christmas tree, which was beautiful. She definitely beat me that year. I made a corn and bacon and scallion dip, which was good, but I didn't even know until I arrived doing this. That was last minute. The next year, I made meatball pull apart sliders. I lost to Buck, who made shrimp ceviche.
Oh, right. And then
I lost the year before that to your brother, who made shrimp toast, and then I lost this year to your brother, who made fried shrimp. Shrimp is the answer.
Did he win with the shrimp toast? Well, one year we had to let him win because he was proposing, and I think that was. But then my dad, he had these dumplings, vegetable dumplings, and I think that he would have won had he used the chili oil that you had given him for Christmas, which he just forgot. Like, you had given it to him like an hour prior. I think with that chili oil might have put him over the top. But
I think you're right. I forgot.
Well, he tied for second.
He tied with me for second place.
So Stephanie got third. Raina and my dad tied, and Matt won.
I made a broccoli and cheese soup themed appetizer. I just like mixed a bunch of literally broccoli, cheddar cheese, broccoli condensed Campbell's soup. I just mixed it up together, and then I rolled it into like crescent rolls and shaped it.
So good.
Shaped it like a wreath, and it was really nice.
It didn't totally stay in wreath form. It was like busting at the seams, but it was like so good.
I needed more crescent roll, and I needed a little less liquid in the.
Oh, it was like phenomenal. And I don't know. At this point, we've had New Year's. Hopefully, that was fine. Who knows?
It's going to be great. Is New Year's? You know how many times I've Googled is New Year's canceled this week?
It's a weird time. Like I am dying over the memes. Like, I reposted this guy, and he said, CDC in 2020, wear masks. CDC in 2021, get vaccinated. CDC in 2022, it is what it is. It is what it is. So, I feel like they're like, it's whatever.
I don't know. Get boosted. Hopefully, if you haven't, you can and you will. Everybody I know that's gotten it has made a full recovery, which is good. But it seems like if you get the booster,
guys,
you're a little bit better.
Yeah, get vaccinated, get boosted, wear masks when you're supposed to, and
have sex doggy style.
Live your life. Okay. Well, speaking of sex, that's my goal for the year.
That's it. We both made resolutions. Ashley's just said sex.
It's just, I told you this. I am trying to have more sex. Like, it's I want to work on my sexual energy. Okay, maybe this is something like I actually put into action some of these things of this like sexual energy I'm trying to work on. I'm not non-sexual. I mean, you can vouch for that. It's not that. It's just sometimes I feel like I'm not in the right mode before dates or before run-ins with people. And like, I feel like I'm just working on like getting in that mode. And we are also launching a new company this year. That's my other that's it. That's really like, Raina and I talk about not really doing resolutions and just kind of living your best life and improving yourself at all times, all around the year. But like, that's the main thing that's happening this year is we're launching this new company, and it should be in Q1, and it aligns with the sex stuff. So, I mean, we're working on this for so long. We've been, running 2 companies at this point, and we can't wait to reveal it to you guys. And it's just big sex energy in 2022 for me. That's like, I mean, I have other goals too. But
have you thought about like steps that you want to take? Like, and I know it sounds like cheesy, but like, I want to like touch more. I want to make eye contact longer. I want to like,
yeah. I mean, again, like this could be stuff we continue to talk about throughout the year. Ashley's sex life, and maybe like put it into play. I mean, this isn't this isn't like, I don't know how to flirt. I don't know how to fuck somebody. I think I've just been in my head. It hasn't been like my priority. I mean, we've been in a pandemic also, and I want to put myself out there a little bit more. I love the goal. I think it's great. I mean, you always say that like I lead with sex a lot more than you do. And there's like pros and cons to that too. I think that like I do it a little, I mean, I'm proud of who I am. I love who I am, but I think it can cause people to write you off a little too much if you do it too soon. So like, it is always like a balance of like, am I giving too much? Am I giving not enough? But I've seen you with guys that you like, and you are like flirtatious. Yeah. I feel like, I think about this thing that Maria said, she was like, I'm a lawyer and I have a date tonight. And Maria was like, go home, change, wash the lawyer off of you, and masturbate and go on the date. And I feel like it's something about getting into like date mode. Like the last like date I went on, I was rushing. I had to get ready really quick. I was stressed. I was flustered. I was late. Like, that's not how you want to start a date. You know what I mean? Like, I almost think it's like some sort of ritual thing of like before a date, before you meet up with somebody, and like just getting in the right mindset. Again, because like flustered, been rushing, had to get an Uber, now you're late is not it.
Well, so we did one of my favorite episodes of the year and really of all time was Nedra Tawwab's Boundaries episode. And I do not struggle with this at all. And you said like we talk about work boundaries. It never comes up for me. Like, I'll shut it down and I'm just like out on work. You have a harder time being like, I'm done for the day. Cause like you just have this list in your head and you're like, I don't want to stop. I mean, that's why you're a great business partner. I love working with you. You're amazing. Ashley will send me ideas for the business at midnight, and I think it's harder for you to draw the boundary and separate from work. And if you got a little better at that, like you said, like wash the CEO
work off you. The CEO. Ooh, that was sexy. And I'm doing better already. I feel like, I don't know. I don't think I took my health for granted before. I always just was like, I'm super duper healthy and like, that's what it is. And like, I can run myself ragged and still never get sick and go and not sleep enough and do this and do that. And I just feel like it caught up with me. I mean, it's an age thing, but it caught up with me in 2021 and I was sick more and I ended the year getting COVID. And I am already like, as of this week, the week between Christmas and New Year's, like, it feels like something has shifted in me where I'm like, I'm giving myself a bedtime. I'm waking up, or I'm going to bed earlier, waking up earlier, starting the day, not looking at my phone, like embracing the quietness, having a cup of coffee, and then like taking Azul for a walk before I ever even look at my phone or open my computer. And I just think like this self-care is really going to be a huge goal for me. It's always a goal, I think, of everybody, like take care of yourself, but I'm really like trying to make strides.
I'm proud of you. I mean, I know it's like a constant on your mind. So also like, I noticed that you don't text me when you start cooking your HelloFresh and then you eat your meal. And like, it's hard for me, like, especially when I see a text come in from you or Ashley, who we work with, or Bella. I always want to check it immediately. And it's important for me. I mean, I do this, but to put my phone in
at this.
I want to put my phone in the other room and spend like an hour not staring at a phone because my eyes feel like they're going to bleed.
Yeah.
And I want to respond because I'm like, other people are working. I should respect that. But like, it's also important to like respect yourself. So yeah, I noticed that with you. You like cook and you don't respond to me for like an hour and you don't share anything funny for an hour. And I think that's good. I think it's important to like give yourself a break. All right, guys, we are really excited to welcome our guest today. She is a licensed therapist who specializes in a modern, relatable approach to therapy in a wide range of topics, from substance abuse to eating disorders, trauma, and more. She is the founder of the Therapy for Women Center, which offers workshops, and they will link you with therapists all over the country. She is the author of the brand new book, Not Drinking Tonight, which we're going to talk about today. Please welcome to the show, Amanda White.
Yay. Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Thank you for being here from your bedroom. It's it's quarantine times.
I tried to tilt the camera to not give that away, but I was too disheveled.
Well, we wanted to record with you in person. We were so excited you were actually going to come here from Philly. And then, of course, it was like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. So,
yeah. But we are so excited to have you. And Ashley and I both read your book last night and the start of the new year. And, we talked about not drinking at the start of last year as well. And I think a lot of people do dry January. But I want you to tell your story. But something that really stuck out to me about your story in general is just that you talk about how there's not this rock bottom moment for you. You tried moderating your drinking. So we're excited to kind of talk to you about that and what that looks like for your life, your book, and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the funny thing is, I feel like to a lot of people, when I stopped drinking, people didn't think I should stop drinking. Often actually the response when I told people that I wanted to quit drinking or I was like, why? You don't have a problem? Are you sure? Like, even when I told my parents, they were like, maybe you're being dramatic. Maybe you should just try moderating. So, it didn't really look like I had a problem. And that's, I think, one of the interesting things that's happening in our culture, which is really cool, is this kind of sober curiosity. It doesn't need to look a specific way kind of movement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to share with us?
Absolutely.
Your story?
Yeah.
Middle bottom? I'm kidding.
Yeah. So I stopped drinking 7 years ago. Essentially the moment for me, and I talk about this in my book, is it wasn't necessarily my worst bottom, my worst moment, but it was Labor Day 7 years ago. And I had been out drinking, and the big moment for me was that I was a yoga teacher at the time, and I woke up at 6 a.m. to teach a yoga class, and I was still drunk. And that was like not okay in my book. And, it's kind of funny because I tell that story and some people are like, whoa, that was really dramatic. And some people are like, oh yeah, I've done stupid things like that before. But my drinking just kind of kept escalating throughout college, throughout after college. And I really noticed that I was using alcohol as a coping mechanism to deal with other things that were going on in my life. Like I struggled with an eating disorder, and every time I kind of tried to make progress in recovering from my eating disorder, I kept relapsing and drinking too much. And I kept struggling with, I would tell myself, I'm going to drink less, or I'm not going to, hook up with this person, or I'm going to try to change and do these things. And I kept realizing that my goals were changing to fit with drinking versus the other way around.
Yeah. And I love what you said in the book of like, every time I drink, something bad doesn't happen, but every time something bad happens, it's because I was drinking. And that like really hit me hard. I've had a long, complicated history with alcohol. I feel like right now I'm in like, I've for years now, it's really healthy. Moderation's great for me. I don't like being drunk, but that was even something my mom said to me. It was like, are you realizing that these bad things happen? Like I flew home one time, got super drunk, lost my license. Like couldn't get back on the plane, like I've had DUIs. I've talked about it before, but just kind of like, I've had to do a lot of reflection, but like when you take a step back and realize bad things are happening, what's the common denominator?
Absolutely.
Amanda, can I ask you, when you were going through all this, and this is probably in the book as well, but were you a therapist currently when you decided to get sober?
I was in school to become a therapist.
Okay.
So it was an interesting place where I wasn't one yet. So I probably could have ignored it for longer because I didn't feel that responsibility yet. Mm-hmm. But really the moment for me too was I could see where it was going. Mm-hmm. And maybe I could have moderated. Maybe I could have not continued to see it get worse, right? But being a therapist was so important to me that I was like, I don't want to risk this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You say a lot in your book, like if you're reading this, you probably are wanting to stop drinking, or you're interested, or you want to know more. So we can't encourage you guys to read the book enough. We're not going to go through the whole book today, but right. I guess what do you see the most of when people are coming to you when they're like, I don't think I'm an alcoholic, but what are the reasons why people are drinking? Like what are some common themes that you see the most?
Yeah. So I think what's crazy too is right this year, the past 2 years, people have been drinking a lot more just with the pandemic. So I've seen a big shift in my practice of people realizing that maybe they're drinking too much just because they're bored, because they've been lonely this year, they've been isolated. But a big theme is that idea, like you said, of I don't know if I'm an alcoholic, but I also don't like where this is heading. Mm-hmm. And my whole goal of kind of writing this book is there needs to be more open conversations about this. Because right now it's like you're an alcoholic and you should never drink, and you obviously have a problem. Or you're not an alcoholic and you should drink, and there's something wrong with you if you don't drink.
And something that like really stuck out to me was this bargaining phase that you talk about on your way to deciding, am I an alcoholic? Do I need to find moderation? Is that you talked about saying to yourself, okay, I'm never going to take shots, or I'm only going to take shots.
Only going to take shots. I love
that. Which really made me laugh out loud. You talked about, which I've done before also, which is like, I'm not going to drink at home. I'm not going to drink by myself. It's only going to be wine. It's only going to be liquor. And I did that too with myself, where I realized, I just like Ashley, I missed a work obligation. I was supposed to go to the airport. I just didn't go. I woke up in my house one day. I had thrown a party that I'd spent thousands of dollars on. I didn't remember it. Like I woke up and I was just like, this is not how I want to be. So for me, whatever, I'll talk about it later, how I decided to get into moderation. But it resonated with me where you were like, there was 100 versions of me being like, moderation will work. Let me try that. And like, even that for you realized like was not a path to anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is a thing that a lot of us go through, whether you want to completely stop drinking, whether you just want to cut back or whatever, we do kind of crazy things sometimes to try to, I really thought in my insanity that if I measured the shots that I took, which meant only taking shots, that would make a difference.
Yeah. I mean, and we see so many people, I think this is a lot of people in comedy and just in life, but especially it feels like in comedy, people that are not drinking because of like Nikki, like her story, for example, or our friend Andrew Collin. Like, it's not that they, are going to have one drink and spiral and like get back there. I don't think that they would qualify as alcoholics. They just, what you say in your book, their life is better without it. And they could have a drink here and there, but they just don't want to. And I use them as an example, but we know so many other people like that are like, yeah, I don't really drink. Now, I'm not an addict. I could have a drink right now and I wouldn't have to have 10 more or, nothing bad would happen, but I've gone so long and it's just I'm not interested in it. And that's fascinating to me because like you said, we grew up like you are, and so I think it's encouraging to see people living that type of life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I also say kind of like for me, drinking was like Russian roulette, where a lot of times it was fine, but those times where it wasn't fine, it went completely against my values and it just wasn't worth it. So maybe, people ask me sometimes like, are you ever going to drink again? Would you moderate? And to me, it's just not worth it because I've created my life where I don't miss drinking anymore.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the point of my book too, is whether you choose to moderate or not, creating a life that, you don't need to escape and that works for you. So you don't even think about it.
Mm-hmm. So you have this chapter, part of your book about defining your relationship with alcohol. So like, how do you have somebody do that? Cause like for somebody like me and Ashley, like both of us sort of feel the same way. We're like, we don't need to get all fucked up. We don't love ourselves like that anyways. We have a good time without it, but we actually can drink in moderation. We just don't love to be all drunk. How do you help people to sort of like figure out what their relationship with alcohol is?
So one of the biggest things I recommend is thinking about the costs and the payoffs of drinking. And some people will say to me, well, there are no benefits to drinking. And I disagree. For a lot of people, there's a reason we drink. It can feel like you're a part of something. If you don't have if you just moderate and it works for you, it might just be something that you do occasionally, like you were saying, Raina, where it's just, something that you do, but you don't get drunk. So I really think that it's really helpful to think about the costs and the payoffs and look at it honestly of what is alcohol bringing to my life and what is alcohol taking away from my life. And then making choices based on that is a good place to start.
I like that. Like, what does it take away from my life? We talked at length last year about a book called by Alan Carr, about how to stop drinking. And he talks about all the things you sort of gain in your life when you get rid of alcohol. And that really spoke to me a lot too. And these like gains and losses, I think, are hard to struggle with.
The thing that's, I guess, spoke to me the most is like, it's not good for your brain. It's not good for your body, no matter what anybody tells you that, because I have found only recently that one drink really does kind of help me perform a little bit better. I get out of my head a little bit. It's one, it's like when I started doing comedy and performing, I was always sober. So I kind of went backwards where like, I realized I'm actually a little better, a little loose. So like I find benefit to it. I'm a social drinker. That's always why I've drank. I love to like stay out and keep the party going. But I personally can't deny the fact that it's not good for your brain. It's more about, that's my whole career depends on it. So I think that I love that you spoke to this, like nobody's telling you this. I mean, we hear about how bad drugs are in school, but like no one's really talking about there is actually no benefit. You can read all the articles you want of like one glass of red wine a day. It's heart healthy. It's like, listen, it's just not. So that's like a sobering for, no pun intended, look at like the effects, take anything personal life, social life out of it, just your body and your brain.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think especially with all of us struggling a lot more with anxiety the past 2 years, I mean, alcohol is one of the worst things for anxiety because chemically your body wants, and people don't know that because they think, oh, well, alcohol is a depressant, but your body wants to be in homeostasis. So when you take a depressant, your body produces chemicals and hormones to bring you back to neutral. Yeah. And those hormones are like anxiety, cortisol producing hormones. The alcohol leaves your body and the anxiety is what's left.
I mean, it gives me anxiety. I don't have anxiety until I'm hungover. It's a true thing. Like it happens, a couple times a year. I have that terrible hangover and I'm like really sad and like really fragile and just have to kind of like curl up in the fetal position. I mean, it's rare, but it's like, my mom would tell me that when I was drinking too much, when I was like in college, early 20s, like, this is why you're sad. This is why you're saying you're depressed and you're not happy. And I would be like, shut up, mom. Like never thought to Google it. You know what I mean? Like I was just in denial, but it's like, it's really so true. And Raina doesn't get as low as I do, but that's like, that's one reason why I just moderate. I don't want it. I don't want to feel like that. Like who's like, it's just not really I mean, listen, a couple times a year it is worth it, but it's just for the for the most part, it's like that's my cost and benefit of not getting drunk.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It doesn't happen to me as much as it happens to you, but I have had so many conversations with friends, especially in the last year, because I think people are drinking more, that are so hungover and they're depressed. And I've had to be like, this is not real. This is your brain being stripped of dopamine and serotonin. This will be fine tomorrow. Like I have to tell myself that too when I feel all depressed. And we went after our Chicago theater show until 3:00 in the morning. And the next day I had to be like, this isn't real. It's going to be fine in a few hours.
But that was one of those worth it nights. That's probably when I got COVID. I mean, listen, it was all worth it. Can we talk about how you quit?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I mean, I did, because 7 years ago, like there weren't really books that existed on just like moderating. There weren't really, I was told that I was an alcoholic and I went to AA for a couple of years. And that was how I got sober, because I always felt like I wasn't, and like I didn't quite fit that, but I also felt like I didn't really have any other options. So it was just what I did for the first few years until I had enough space from it that there was, Instagram communities started becoming more of a thing. I saw other types of people talking about being sober who didn't call themselves alcoholics. So in the beginning, it was really hard. And I think part of what made it hard was when you say you're going to stop drinking, you think about your life. Like the first thing I remember thinking when I said I was going to stop drinking was, what am I going to do on my wedding? Right? I wasn't engaged. I wasn't in a relationship with anyone, but that's often what we first go to. And that's why I do think it's really important to, if you are someone who's exploring your relationship with alcohol, whether it's cutting back or moderating, trying to take it one day, 1 month, 1 week at a time, because I mean, when I got married a couple of years ago, and it was absolutely the last thing on my mind. I've gone through much harder things.
But it's also like, what am I going to do at my wedding? But it's like, but also I don't want to be drunk at my wedding and something terrible to happen. Like, do you have that self-talk too?
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like my wedding I was so present during it because I didn't drink, which was so amazing. And I was so self-expressed and had so much fun that I probably looked super drunk because I was just, like my fullest expression, which was amazing. I had a bachelorette party that I was sober for, and some of my friends drank and some didn't, but we went like clubbing. Like it was so fun. So I also think normalizing that you can go out and have fun and be, not drink too.
Okay, so I love that you said that. And I think that people will relate to this notion of like the minute you decide I'm not going to drink anymore, you're like, oh my God, what does my social life look like? And I think for me, the best exercise for me when I was like, I got to cut back was, can I spend a whole night with friends who are drinking at a bar and not drink? And can I enjoy that? And I think a lot of people are like, I have social anxiety. This lubricates it for me. I don't know how to talk to a guy on a date without alcohol. Like, how does this look? And for me, it was just going out a few times totally sober for me to be like, oh, I don't need to like get so drunk. I enjoy myself sober. I enjoy other people when I'm sober. And I think that if you just do it, like the hardest thing is trying it once. And I'm not sober, so I'm not saying I do this long term, but it was at least for me, like realizing this is still so much fun without alcohol.
Absolutely. And I love that you did that, Raina. And that probably has made it easier to moderate, because I think people don't ever learn the skill of doing it. And it is kind of a skill. Most of us start drinking in high school or college, and we never go on a date without drinking, or we don't go, to a party or something without alcohol. And, with anxiety in general, avoidance makes anxiety worse. And if we can actually take steps to lean into what scares us, it builds a lot of confidence, feeling like you can do that. And then you have more choice. Like I talk a lot in the book about how if we want real freedom in choosing alcohol or not, we need to be able to have some skills where we can choose to not drink.
I mean, I think that's just this paralyzing fear of my social life is over. It's like, Brandon and I hang out with so many people that don't drink, and they will hang out all night. They'll stay out later than us. I mean, it doesn't, and then they're not sloppy, and it's just kind of, I mean, I've just gotten into the point in my life where I hate the feeling of being drunk. I hate the feeling of losing control. Where I used to love to be drunk, I'd be like, let's get fucking drunk. Like, in college, it was like, we better black out before we go out. It was just like,
Yeah.
And now I'm like, if I feel it even setting in a little bit, I'm like water for the rest of the night. And then you start to hate being around people that are drunk because you're like, oh my God, they're slurring, they're sloppy, like they're getting too emotional. Like it's just taking a step back and realizing that you have a social life. So many people go out, they go to bars. For some people, it might be like triggering, but
right.
Doesn't mean your life is over.
No, I think when you're sober, actually, you are not the problem. Other people are the problem. I didn't have a hard time not drinking. I had a hard time being around other people drinking.
That's what I'm saying.
I couldn't stand them. But I think that people are worried that like someone's going to like heckle them or be like, come on, just drink. I feel like if you have friends like that, like, I don't know. My response is like, fuck those people. And that's a crazy thing to say to somebody, to like heckle them into putting anything into their body. But do you have advice for somebody that's just like, yeah, I try to not drink, and all my friends are like, what the fuck?
Yeah. I mean, I think if your friends are continuously saying that to you, I think there is a deeper conversation to have, because there is probably something going on. I mean, I wouldn't recommend necessarily having a deep conversation with those people when they're drunk because they might not remember
right.
and they might not be super receptive to the conversation. But yeah, I think there's a point where you have conversations, and I'm a big fan of you don't have to tell people. I mean, obviously, if you are good friends with someone and they know you, then it's important to have a conversation maybe that you're not drinking anymore so they can stop asking you all the time. But I also believe that if you're someone who's moderating or wants to be able to just not drink sometimes and not be heckled, like you don't have to say that you're sober. You don't have to disclose anything you're not comfortable with. And it is their issue if they keep trying to heckle you.
Absolutely.
That's not you.
Yeah.
It's a crazy thing. Like I feel like that's just other people's insecurities. Yes. They feel like you're judging them for drinking. And it's like, I'm not judging you. I think it's great you want to get drunk. Good for you that you can, I don't have to put something in my body because you want me to.
Exactly. And those people are probably just like projecting onto you.
Totally. Yeah.
That's where that comes from a lot of times, is they might be judgmental. So they think that you're judging them, even if you're not paying attention.
Right. Like you literally don't care. So did you feel like, you were saying that you were you went to AA for a couple of years. Like when did you feel that point of like, my life is better without it? Was it soon, or what did you mourn the loss a little?
I absolutely mourned the loss. I think it's different for everyone. For me, it was hard. I mean, I was 24 when I stopped drinking. So I felt very like, it was a huge part of my identity. I prided myself on being crazy and super fun and, being ridiculous when I went out. So it was a hard adjustment, and I did lose some friends, not even because they weren't supportive, but I realized I didn't have anything in common with them. Like I would try to hang out with them sober, and we had like nothing to talk about, which was sad, but it was also freeing. Like I feel like a lot of my friendships became so much more deep because you have to have something like, we all have those drinking friends sometimes that you don't really have a ton in common with during the day.
I think it's interesting to realize like these friendships are based on alcohol. And, I think that we all have different friends for different reasons. I have party friends. I have like serious, pick me up from the hospital friends. But, I think you want to surround yourself with a friend group that at the end of the day, none of them need to be party friends, that you do have like a deeper relationship with people. And I think it's interesting to realize like, oh, so many of these relationships are just based on alcohol.
Yeah. We did an episode recently, Friendship Red Flags. And we said that one of them is if you always have to be drunk. Like I don't have someone in my life that I would call a friend that we can't hang out sober. Like if you just want to get coffee with somebody and you sit down, you're like, this is weird. Maybe it's time to reevaluate the friendship a little bit.
Yeah.
In that way, I do think like that is kind of the benefit of it. Does kind of distill down what you might be holding on to in your life that isn't serving you. I mean, that's certainly how I felt, where it was like the mourning process that I went through, and it was definitely an identity shift, but it allowed me to keep going because I was noticing all these benefits of I was way more authentic. I had deeper connections with people around me. I know we're going to get into dating, but even like dating, it was really scary, but I can tell you, like, I knew if someone was a fit or not pretty quick to a date when you're sober.
Well, let's talk about dating. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about dating when you're sober and disclosing to somebody that you're sober and activities. And then I'm excited to talk about dating a sober person. So, but talk to us about dating when you were at 24. Dating when you're sober is like pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was definitely hard at first. And I tried to, I did some things that I definitely don't recommend. Like I would lie and not say anything. And I would go to the bar early and say like, make me something that looks like a drink, which I don't recommend if you're someone who's sober, because I got into some awkward situations where then I would have to like lie. I mean, my biggest recommendation with dating especially is, and social in general, is you don't have to say that you're not drinking or you don't drink, but also don't lie and don't give an excuse, because it can feel so good sometimes to give an excuse like I'm getting up early tomorrow, or I have to be the DD, or I'm moving, whatever. And it is just wild how people will come out of the woodwork to solve your problem called you're not drinking and you want to drink. Like they will offer to give you they'll pay for your Uber. They'll offer to get up in the morning and move you.
That's so true. You're right. Like that is so funny. You like try to give an excuse and they're like, I'll break you down until you're forced to tell the truth.
Right. It's crazy. So that's that's one thing I think for sure when you're dating. But you also don't have to, some people, I think it's really cool with Bumble now. I've heard, I'm not on Bumble anymore because I'm married, but I've heard that they have an option on Bumble now where you can say that you're sober, you don't drink.
Hinge has it.
Or Hinge, maybe.
I think most of them, there's a little icon. It's, there's drugs, smoking, drinking.
Yeah.
And I think it's an incredible thing that they have. And it's like, I think every dating app should have it. They might, I don't know. But anyway, keep going.
Yeah. So I think like whether you choose to do that is, up to you or not. I experimented for sure with, sometimes I would tell people, sometimes I wrote it on a profile, sometimes I didn't. What I realized was I got less dates for sure, especially when I was younger, but I had deeper connections because someone has to be willing to like have a real authentic conversation with you if they know that you're not going to be drunk on the date with them.
I mean, somebody might decide to not go on a date with you also, somebody's just like, I want a drinking buddy and a fuck buddy. They might not go out with you, and like, good for you that you got to weed those people out.
Absolutely.
So Amanda, would you be okay with them drinking, or like, were you looking for someone that didn't drink? And then I'm going to throw another question in the mix. I want to hear about your husband.
Yeah. So my husband does drink, and I'm fine with people drinking. Not everyone I think is, but most people that I know are totally fine with someone else drinking, because sobriety for most people isn't about other people. It's really about themselves and their own relationship with alcohol. So yeah, I am a huge believer in people who are sober and not sober can date. And I know Raina has experience with that too, but I had been sober for 2 years by the time I met him. But we have times where, I'll be like, can you not drink tonight so that we can be more present with each other and things like that. But it's kind of like anything else that, no relationship's perfect. You have to navigate differences no matter what.
That's such a simple but profound thing to say. It's like, there's going to be issues, but whatever.
Were most of your dates at bars? Like those few years where you were dating around, were they at bars, or did you are you a big proponent of finding other stuff to do that isn't alcohol related?
For me, it's a lot about the atmosphere of the bar. I'm not really a big fan of going to like a dive bar or something like that, but I did go to dates on bars. I would also sometimes say like, let's go get ice cream, or let's go get coffee, or do things like that also. So it kind of depended on the date. And I think it depends on the person, but if you're not bothered by going to a bar. What's really cool, I know in New York and in Philly, there's also been such a cool resurgence of like, there's like mocktails at bars now, and there's a lot more alcohol-free options. So I think that that's a really great thing to do on a date also.
And how many of us have been on like 3 dates with somebody and you're like, do I have a connection with them, or was I drunk all 3 of those times?
Yeah. I dated a guy that I realized this was so many years ago, but he was like tall and cute. Oh, Two-Shirt Trent, Raina. That we've talked about on the podcast. He had 2 shirts. They called him Two-Shirt Trent. But I realized, and this was still when I was just really getting drunk a lot, but I realized like I'm getting extra drunk with him because I don't like him. And I just want to, because he's tall and cute. He lives in my apartment complex and the sex is okay. But I was like, Ashley, I lost my keys, all my entire house keys, like because of a night out with him. Like I had to like walk it back and be like, I can't date somebody that I'm pre-gaming to be around them. Like this is not
a good sign that it might not be a good match, whether it's a date or a friendship, I think too.
Yeah. You got a free game for the date.
That is so funny. Well, I want to just like give credit from the other side of like dating somebody who was sober, that like, it just wasn't a thing for me. If you had asked me like 5 years ago, definitely 10 years ago, would I want to date a sober person? My answer probably would have been no. And that's fine too. Like, I think it's fine if you don't want to date a sober person. Like if a lot of your activities revolve around alcohol, that's totally fine. It was like, I was with this person for 8 months. It just like really wasn't a thing for me. And I think you have to ask yourself a bunch of questions, like right off the bat. Why is this person sober? What are they sober from? What does the sobriety looked like for them? Like, are they dealing with the trauma? Are they in therapy? How long?
If there is any trauma, there's not always trauma. It's just, sometimes a choice regardless. Yeah. But
for him, it wasn't, we all have trauma and issues, but like he had been to therapy. He was in AA. He's been sober for 5 years. I felt like I was with a person that was dealing with the issues in their life, and that made it easier for me. He also told me immediately. So like was super honest about it right off the bat. And like before we even met, we met doing a podcast actually, but when we were still in the texting phase, he told me right away he was sober. So I had the information. He was like super cool. And like, he didn't make it a thing. He was like, oh, I don't drink or do drugs. I'm sober. And I think the honesty was really great for me. And then I could make a decision on my own. And then really it wasn't a thing. And there were a lot of really great things about dating a sober person. Personally, the sex was better. I never was fucking a person that like couldn't get it up, couldn't keep it up. Like the sex was always good. I always felt like he was present with me. And I felt like dates had to always be a little more creative. Like our go-to was never going to be to go sit at a bar. He didn't care if I drank. He sat around me and Ashley and we drank, but, it was always like, let's find an art installation or museum or some kind of like cool thing to do. And it like pushed my ability to like find activities. And so I liked all that stuff. It was a little embarrassing that like there were some experiences that he got to see sober and I don't remember, but but like in general, I think that like if you meet somebody that's like dealing with their shit and they fit into your lifestyle, that it's just like not a big deal. It was never a big deal for me. It was never a thing. So I just want to like give credit to people that are like, oh my God, does anybody want to date me? Yeah, absolutely. You're a really fun person to date. You have control of your emotions. I feel like people fight all the time when they're drunk. That never happened for us. I think there's all kinds of crying and emotional just craziness that happens when two people are hammered. That never once happened. It was nice, honestly. I enjoyed it.
I would rather date a sober person than a person that was drunk all the time. I won't date somebody that is just drunk all the time. Like if I feel like someone's just drinks too much, parties too much, it's like a huge turnoff to me. Also, like at my age, like that felt like it's kind of a younger habit to be like, we're going out, we're getting bottles every night of the week. Like I'd so much prefer the opposite end of the spectrum. I dated someone that needed to stop drinking. Ultimately, like all of our problems stem from alcohol, and it kind of boiled down to like, are you going to consider this or are we going to break up? We broke up for other reasons too, but it was someone that their life would be so much better without alcohol. That's the question you say to ask yourself outright. And I feel like that's the takeaway of like, look at your life without it, because all the negativity is coming from it.
Yeah.
So I think it's becoming less and less of a thing too. I think so many things are just less of a thing in 2022 now, I guess, alcohol preference, not drinking, sexual preference, like everything's just like, yeah, whatever, who cares? Right. Live your truth, whatever that may be.
Absolutely. And I feel like too, it's like, if we're looking at what is attractive, I feel like these days it's like, yeah, like going to therapy, dealing with your shit, like being honest with yourself and other people is like, it's a really attractive quality if you're looking to date someone.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm just such a believer too. And like, if we're looking to love ourselves, if we're looking to develop confidence, it has to come from like living a life that's in alignment with your values. Like it's really hard to live a life that you feel comfortable and confident in if you wake up like even only a couple times a week and you feel horrible about all the things you did and you're going through your phone and trying to apologize and cleaning up this whole huge mess. It really impacts your self-esteem.
Yes, that anxiety loop in your brain on top of everything else you have to do in a day. Like, who wants to deal with that? And I mean, it's not a hot take. I'm just like, I'm better at my job. I'm a better friend. I'm a better everything when I'm not hungover and all like hazy from the alcohol. What a gift to like be sober.
But also there's people that drink their faces off every night and they're great partners, great friends. They excel at their job. And that's just what it is. We're all built differently. We're all wired differently. They don't get to hangover depression. Like, God bless them, you know, like, cause this episode is what's going to work best for your life. It's not a everyone stop drinking episode, but listen, it is bad for you. And that comes from somebody that drinks.
Yeah, it's bad for your skin. And this is also coming from somebody who drinks.
Look at J-Lo. Why does J-Lo look like that? Why do some of these celebrities look like that? I mean, listen, it's hard facts.
Well, when I got sober, right, like I didn't know anyone who didn't drink. So I used to Google sober celebrities and I used to keep a list in my pocket.
That is so funny.
And I found out Blake Lively was sober and I was like, oh my God.
God damn it.
Yeah, I can do it.
She's so hot.
Of course she is.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I have a question for you about like your self-talk and like the road through sobriety. I mean, because I've just never... Listen, I don't lean on alcohol on bad days, but there are some days you get home and you're like, I need a fucking drink. Like, yeah. I need to de-stress. So like, I'm sure in the last years for you, there's been days where you're just like, I can't do this. Everything is wrong. Everything is bad. Like, I don't need 100 drinks. I need one drink. I can do one drink. So like, what is your self-talk been, or what was it like in the beginning when like you felt like that?
I think a lot of times we have that thought of I really need a drink because we've been like culturally conditioned also to want a drink at the end of the day or want a drink in response to stress. If we look at movies and TV, it's like wild when you start to pay attention how much the characters rely on alcohol a lot of times to deal with stress. So I think one thing to just keep in mind is that sometimes you don't actually want a drink. What you want is to relieve your stress. You want to forget about what happened during the day. Like, you want a moment where you sit down and you do a ritual and you sip something and you kind of end the day. So I'm a really big believer in you can also create, you know, rituals or ways to de-stress that don't involve alcohol and actually will be more effective at dealing with your stress than having a drink.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and that's something I think that it's so important to reflect on why you drink. I have never been a person who wants to numb my pain. If I'm feeling sad or low, I do not drink. I'm like, it's just going to make it worse. And I feel like
that is completely true.
Yeah. So maybe super stressed, work stress. Yeah. But that's not like emotional pain. And so I've never used it in that way. I'm not a get drunk at home type of person, but it was bad things were happening when I was socially binge drinking. So there's that too. But to me, and I obviously say this without judgment, like I feel like if you really take a step back and you're like, I am drinking to not feel things, think about, you know, working through that in a different way. And I mean, everybody, I'm just like, I got to go to Marina knows, like if I'm in a dark place, I'm like, I got to go to yoga. It's so corny to say, but, or I got to get on the Peloton. Like that didn't happen until I was like late in my 20s where exercise became the thing to like get out of a funk or something like that. Cause I think I know myself to the point where like, yeah, getting drunk tonight might make it better for a minute, but like tomorrow's going to be like really dark, like not going to be okay. So I don't know. I don't know the people's answers. I mean, maybe you start smoking. I'm kidding, but
maybe you're California sober. No, but actually, I think you also bring up like a good point, which is that like it's this temporary Band-Aid on what you're feeling. So like if you actually stay sober and you address what you're feeling, go to a workout class, you make your body feel better, you get those good chemicals,
whatever. Yeah.
Get on the phone with a friend. I take like a crazy amount of walks. I walk the city like a crazy amount. It makes me feel better when I like don't look at my phone. I take a walk. It's also not a hot take. I say this on the show all the time. Open up your computer, open a Word doc, just type it away. Like whatever you're feeling, like address it with other things. Cause like alcohol, it's not a real stress reliever. It is a temporary stress reliever. And the stress is going to come back at the, you know, like once you're sober.
Exactly.
So that's why I wanted to ask you. Cause I think that it is most people's natural inclination to be like, I'm not doing this shit anymore. I'm going to have a drink.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, one thing to know too is alcohol is a myopic drug. And what that essentially means is that it takes how you're currently feeling and just expands it. And while that can be, you know, if you're in a good mood, it can expand how you're feeling. If you're in a bad mood, it will expand negatively how you're feeling. And it's also why the night can turn really quick. You know, if you hear something or someone says something that you don't like, and all of a sudden it's like, you know, a switch has flipped, sorry. Right? Like it's so quick how it happens. And it's because you don't have a lot of control over it. And you're really at the mercy of whatever that current feeling is in your brain.
Oh my God. It's so true. When that switch flips, oh my God. When you like, But do you feel like there's anything we missed in terms of people who might be sober curious?
I think like experimenting and trying it out, you know, people can get, like we said, so black and white about it. But I think if you're interested in this, try taking a break, try doing a dry January or taking a couple weeks off and seeing how it feels. Even if you don't stop drinking completely, it can be a great exercise and an illuminating exercise in seeing how alcohol might be not serving you, or you might be using it as a crutch to deal with other things.
And even just assessing those times, like, okay, so maybe I'm not going to give up alcohol, but I'm only going to do it when it is a celebratory, happy, social thing. Again, it can always turn. The switch can flip, but like, I'm sad and I want to drink the pain away. Maybe that's when like experimenting with not doing it in those moments. And like Raina said, taking a walk, making some fancy tea, you know, whatever you decide to do to replace it with.
Absolutely. I bought Ashley fancy tea for Christmas.
She did. And I was like, how am I going to, I was like, I don't know what the fuck to do with this. And I was like, showed it to my mom, and my mom was like, you got to get a teapot. I ordered it last night, right? I got one on Amazon. You put all the little stuff in the teapot and it boils the water around it. But that might be like what you do instead of pouring a glass of wine. You get your teapot out.
Your fancy tea. Ashley and I have a good friend who was on this podcast. His name is Mike Cannon. And he got sober and it's like in solidarity with his wife while she was pregnant. And he was like, I loved that I like wasn't bloated. I didn't have a double chin. I could like clearly write jokes. He's a comedian. He was like, I just never went back to it. Like, see how much better your body looks when you stop drinking.
Well, that's a great example, Raina. I'm glad you brought him up. He was somebody that I couldn't think of earlier when we were thinking of all these comedians. But yeah, it's like he kind of had a reason. Like he was like, well, I want to show my wife support while she's pregnant, and just saw the effects. Because I think it could be so scary for someone to be like, I'm quitting forever.
Yeah. Because with almost anything else, we don't feel this need to like make this declaration that we're never going to do anything ever again. You know, if you want to exercise more, we're not like, I'm never not going to exercise ever again. Like it's a habit, kind of like anything else too.
That is true. Make it a week. Don't make it forever. See how that goes.
Well, we're talking about positive outlooks and things. Let's talk about when you don't want to have a positive outlook on things. We pulled this post from your Instagram. I don't know if Raina has it easily accessible, but we love to have guests and quote them back to them.
I don't. My phone's in my bathroom. Do you have it easily?
Oh, here it is. I have it. Okay.
I think it was, you don't have to.
Yes.
Okay.
You're like, Amanda, I'm going to take it from here. Actually,
I'm actually going to be the therapist here. It was a carousel of slides, but you don't have to try to be positive all the time.
So one of the tools that you talked about, it was a separate post, but I think this goes with this, is that like when you're not feeling positive, to just like accurately identify the emotion. And I think that can help with also not drinking. But let's talk about it a little more.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's really crazy to think about. Just in the studies they've done, a lot of us don't know very many emotion words. And the more they've done studies and the more emotion words you know and can identify, actually the better your mental health outcomes are. And it's a term called emotional granularity. So essentially what we want to do is be able to identify our emotions better, because then we can not only take care of ourselves, but also if you think about it, language doesn't just help us identify things. Language creates our life. It creates our experience too. So I often give the example of kids a lot of times when they're young only know like 3 emotion words. Like they know happy, sad, and angry. Mm-hmm. And because they only know those words, they're typically happy, sad, or angry like 1/3 of their life. But once they start learning the words like frustrated or annoyed or worried, they can then reduce how intense those feelings are. Because if they have an understanding of like angry is like yelling and stomping their feet maybe and being mad, if they recognize frustrated is less than that, then they are able to more accurately articulate how they're feeling.
I love that. And I use that word a lot because it's important to me to articulate exactly that. I'm frustrated. I'm not angry, screaming, yelling, end the relationship. Yeah. Just like, I feel like I say that to Raina, like I'm just frustrated because, and I feel like it lessens.
I hate when she says it to me. Oh,
It's not necessarily, it's not that you did something, but like something might happen in the business. Sometimes it's just because she did something, but it's like, you want to be clear that like, I don't hate you. Like,
right.
That's true. I know that's true. I think it's actually, I didn't think about it in terms of like explaining to other people how you're feeling, but yes, like I feel like accurately identifying the emotion to somebody else. The way that I thought about it was like when I'm feeling particularly anxious or stressed or not positive, telling myself like to get over it and be positive is not helpful. The first thing I do is try to say, what am I really feeling? What can I attribute that feeling to? And let's identify that problem. And that will alleviate my problems. Like if I feel a lot of stress and, like we've all been like, why do I feel so anxious? But if you identify why, and then I attack that problem, it's not me like trying to be more positive. It's me trying to like problem solve. And that's like a different thing, that it's an actionable step for me.
Yeah. And I think it absolutely applies to both, because if you can identify how you're feeling, exactly, you're able to better take action to take care of yourself, to help understand why. And a lot of times just being curious about what's going on in your body, mental health wise, will make a big difference in kind of reducing how intense it is versus when we're like beating ourselves up. So often we beat ourselves up when we don't feel positive or we feel anxious. And what we don't recognize is not only then do we have the emotion, but we have like all the anger or frustration on top of that emotion towards ourselves because we're judging ourselves for how we feel.
Yeah. Your slide said we feel shame and think something is wrong with us instead of getting curious about what we could do to take care of ourselves, which is exactly what you just said. I mean, I love this line in here. It says, your life is yours. You don't owe anyone positivity. Like sometimes you're just in a bad mood. Like that's, even for me, like this, I do things to help myself get out of a bad mood. I like to look at the positive side. I'm still sometimes just like, I'm fucking in a bad mood and I'm going to sit here and like be in it. You need to sit with it sometimes. Like, I think it's the same even with like grief. Like we did a whole episode on grief. I'm like, you cannot beat yourself up because you're not getting over something in the time that you think you should be, whether it's a breakup, a death, whatever it is. Like, I think some people feel like they're unsuccessful if they're sitting with a negative feeling.
Yes. I think so many of us were raised also to believe, just because I think our parents didn't always know what emotions were, they didn't always give us kind of this education about it, that we believe that happiness is supposed to be our baseline. And that's just not true. Like your brain doesn't care whether you're happy. Your brain evolutionarily cares about keeping you alive. And it would rather have you be super anxious and alive than really positive and not worrying about things that might happen that you could control.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's wrap it up. You were talking about our brains and what they're equipped to do and not equipped to do. But one thing that we just love, and you talked about with Kate Kennedy, who is a friend of ours and been on the podcast, is this, our brains actually not being equipped to handle constant feedback from the world.
Yes.
And, Rain and I had discussed this right before we hopped on with you of like, is this relevant to everybody? And of course, it's more relevant to people that live their lives on the internet. It's more relevant to influencers or podcasters or any type of celebrity. But I think even the average person like is on social media, they are on TikTok or whatever, like they get comments and they put something out into the world that's personal to them. And they have to fear that people are going to say something negative. And I think we all live that way, no matter how many followers we have. So I just, want to talk through it with you, even if it's just like reiterating like, yo, this isn't normal and this is fucked up.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think one thing that can put it into perspective, and again, I think this applies whether you are a content creator on social media or not, is our brains are only really wired to be in touch with about 150 people maximum.
Yeah, but sorry, the first slide, just a reminder, your brain is not evolved to be in touch with millions of people. It's like, wow.
Yeah. And that's why, people, and you can do work to, develop thick skin and whatever, blah, blah. But I think it's also important to recognize that you're wired to care about what people think about you, because if you didn't, you would die. Like if you were kicked out of your like clan, you know, evolutionarily, you wouldn't survive. So it makes sense that you care about people and care about what they think, and you can do work to become less sensitive to it. But we're also just so bombarded, even not just like with whether people can comment on your own content or what you post, but even I just think about like the news and crises and the amount that happened in 2021 and 2020, you know, it's like we're so connected to everything happening all over the world. Even if we're not directly talking to those people, it's a lot to just know what's happening crisis wise all over the world at all times.
Mm-hmm. I mean, listen, everybody wants to be liked at a baseline. If you say that you don't, I don't believe you. If you really don't care if you really, really don't care what anyone on earth thinks about you, I don't know, I don't fuck with you. But
there also might be something wrong with you.
Yeah, you're a sociopath.
Yeah, I think that we are all trying to be the best people that we can. I think that you can get to a place where you can say to yourself, I try to be the best version of me. I like me. I hope everybody else does. If they don't, it's not going to destroy my life or my day. And I think that's what we should all strive for. But I think that like it is applicable, this constant feedback loop to everybody, because like everybody does have a need to be liked, but you don't have to be liked by absolutely everyone. And that's fine too. Not everybody is going to like everything that comes out of my mouth. I think Ashley and I try really hard to be inclusive of everybody and open-minded and understanding, but I'm going to say stuff that offends people, and I'm okay with that.
Yep.
I mean, I have over the past few years, like done a lot of work. It's self-talk, it's self-control, and knowing that people say things because they're jealous or they just want to be mean that day. You know, like it just goes back to hurt people, and these things don't matter. And like, if you're putting content out into the world, you're never going to please everybody. I can't stress enough. I am the biggest proponent of like, don't take the bait. Don't ever respond to somebody that doesn't even have an avatar on Instagram. It's a troll. You know, I feel like I preach this. I feel like I could teach a course on it. I feel like I have it down as much as anybody can have it down, but it doesn't matter. We have hundreds of thousands of followers, millions of people listen to this podcast every month. Like, people are going to say mean stuff to us. And there's, as much as we don't read the comments, we don't read the reviews, we sometimes cannot avoid it. And it still gets to you because we're human. And it was so comforting to read your post. I'm going to quote you back to you, but you said you aren't meant to hear endless feedback about your work, your personality, how you look, your life, etc. Regardless of how confident you are, your brain will always ultimately care what people think.
Sometimes your body reacts even before you have time to like logic yourself out of it, right? Like your heart rate can increase, you can get tightness in your chest, like you can just react. And that's not something you can even, you can work yourself down from it and talk to yourself, but that, we're human beings at the end of the day too.
And like, I don't know the answer. I mean, the answer to everyone else is just to stop doing this to people and cutting them down. And, if you feel the need to write something nasty to a stranger on the internet, you need to self-reflect and realize why you're hurting so badly and why you're self-loathing. But we talked about this with the D'Amelio show. It's like, those girls are probably traumatized forever, just by what the internet did to them in their formative stages of like still developing as humans. And Rain and I didn't have to deal with this until we were in our 30s. And so we feel grateful for that, but I don't know the answer. I think it's just letting people know, like, you're not weak because you're affected by the stuff people say to you on the internet, but if we can all just be a little bit kinder. I mean, geez, it's also so bad.
Just because somebody says something doesn't make it true. And I have to hammer that home for myself all the time. Like, when somebody says something to me, and I find it easier, just like Ashley, if it's a troll, I don't care, whatever. You're just here to hurt my feelings. You just slid on into my DMs to say something mean. You'll pick something. People like this, they know exactly how to cut you down. Somebody said something really mean. Yeah. Somebody said something really mean to me about this Instagram video, this Instagram story I did working out. They knew that they could like insult my body. I was doing something good for me. It hurt my feelings, whatever. But it's the people that that like give you the feedback that hurts a little more. I think it's just getting to a place where you can say to yourself, what is constructive feedback versus like, what is something that's really not nice and I didn't deserve that. And just because you think it doesn't mean it's true. Just because you think I don't know. I do a lot of like work to tell myself that, like, what's hurtful and what's meant to be just genuine feedback.
Yeah. And I think too, like knowing yourself, knowing what your triggers are, knowing what you might be more sensitive to or what your insecurities are or whatever, I think that can be really helpful too. At least for me, I know as a therapist, I get very, very sensitive and worried when someone tells me I've caused harm, because like as a therapist, you're not supposed to cause harm. So I used to spiral really hard anytime anyone, called me problematic or things like that. And it's also recognizing, obviously, we all are imperfect. We make mistakes, we mess up, and, it's important to own when you do, but it's also people's opinions change and they're filtered through their perceptions.
Yes, exactly that. I think what I've done the most recently is just like reminding myself that for every negative comment, there's 100 positive ones. Like I mean, you tell me, but I feel like sometimes we're wired to look at the negative first and like grab onto it. So like, the rare occasion that I get something really nasty comment or DM that I accidentally read, even though I tried not to, or whatever it is, like I will go in and like read the positive ones. Cause at least, Rain and I mean, our brand is that 90% of people really enjoy us, like us, and think that we've helped them in some way, and it's positive and it's good and it's amazing feedback. And then there's 10% that's not. I don't know the exact percentages, but I think sometimes someone can get 100 comments and 99 of them are positive, and there's one negative one, and that one sticks out and sits with you, or it could even bother you for the rest of the day, where it's like, why don't we just shift to the positive? Because it's probably more positive than negative. And so I think that that's encouraging, I guess. And that's what I've been working on. Like, why did I let that get to me? And why did I even give it my energy when I could go in and read a bunch of really kind messages that I haven't even bothered to respond to? Again, I can't respond to every DM, but like, why not like give the positive energy back to someone that gave it to me, as opposed to even being in my head for 1 second about this nasty thing somebody said?
Absolutely. Well, and I can also answer the question, Ashley, of why do we tend to focus on the negative so much? It is because if you think about it, like, even the risk of something negative hurting us, your brain doesn't care if you're right or wrong. Like, so it's worth the anxiety of worrying about like a snake potentially being in the grass that could hurt you, for example, rather than thinking about all the great things that are happening, because your brain cares about keeping you alive. And this is the whole thing, is like our brain isn't adapted to live in this world. So the things that trigger us now aren't life-threatening anymore, but we still a lot of times respond biologically the same way.
Yeah, totally.
That's so true. You're so right. And actually, I should practice that more too. Like, I will get like hundreds of comments on something, and one will start with like, is it just me or does she? And I'm like, oh my God, it's going to ruin my whole day. Oh my God.
Yeah. And
but I try to think about the mental state of the person that decided to do that. And that day, Ashley and I were talking about, because this person responded to my Instagram story.
I like went crazy. I like was like, pull the car over. Like, I was like, fuck this fucking loser. And this isn't even true. Like, fuck this. I was like so mad.
It really hurt, but I don't know why it like stuck with me, whatever. It's a nothing. They said something mean about my workout routine, or how I looked, but you have to take a step back and just say to yourself, like, what is the mental state of a person that saw you doing something cool, creative, outside of the box, good for yourself, and thought, I am going to ruin that for them? Like, how rotten is that person? And like, that person did it on purpose to hurt your feelings. And again, does not make it true, but like, that person's just a shitty person, and you can just write it off.
Yeah. Or they have so much pain. It's like bubbling out of them everywhere that they go, that they just have to be all over everyone.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we discussed this. This is the topic we could talk about forever.
Well, Ashley, I want to hear you said that you could write a course on this. Maybe you should actually. I feel like I've worked on it a lot. I feel like if I just want to put into words like how I deal with it, because I think I guess it's even been before the podcast. I was a blogger and some things went viral, and almost every time something went viral, half the comments were negative. So I started to have to deal with this kind of like later in my 20s, early 30s. And it also helps to see, I dated a guy that was a comedian, and I looked up to him and how he handled negative commentary, how he basically was like, I don't give a fuck. Like, it was just kind of, I looked to other people, I looked to how they handled it, and I looked to people that I do not want to be like. And there's people that like get a negative comment and they get on their Instagram story and they cry about it. And I'm like, that is not what I want to be. So I've looked up to people that I admire too, and then just had to do a lot of like, let's think about what trolls actually are. And like, let's think about how
pathetic these people's lives are and how sad they are and like why they feel like they need to cut you down. So yeah, I mean, maybe I'll work on that. I kind of like, I don't think it's a problem that plagues everybody, but I think it affects us all in some way or another if we're on the internet. And I feel for people that don't deal with it all the time, so they're not equipped to deal with it. And like some just non-influencer person that just posts something on Instagram that is, you know, they think they looked good or they're sharing something positive and somebody comes in and says something mean and it wrecks their whole day because they don't deal with it consistently. And I feel for them. So maybe I'll get my master class together.
Like Ashley needs another job to do. I think we saw it so much at the beginning of the pandemic through the last 2 years where people have started to find more creative ideas. So they are putting themselves out on the internet, whether it's teaching a class, whether it's the type of working out you do with other people, art, whatever, starting a podcast. So many people started things where they put themselves out there. No one is trained to deal with this, from like the most basic person to Kim Kardashian. No one is born to learn how to be on this like constant feedback loop, as you called it. It's not easy. Everyone's human. It hurts everyone's feelings. And I saw so many people just attacking everyone on the internet for how stupid it was that they were like doing Instagram lives cooking, doing Instagram lives working out. And it's like, that's everyone else's problem if they have a problem, you know, just keep doing you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, my dog groomer has called me 3 times, so I guess Azul is ready to be picked up. But I think we got to everything, Amanda, unless you feel like there's anything you wanted to say that we missed.
No, I think this was great. Thank you guys so much. This was so great to chat with you.
Well, we loved having you. The book is great. Your Instagram is so great. It's full of so many great just tidbits of mental health. So if you want to talk to people about where they can find you, your therapy, just your insights, your books, everything, I'm sure everybody would love to.
Oh, and one more thing. You had this post. We don't need to go through it. We've took enough time of your day, but you guys can go find it on her Instagram. And it's 10.
I'm so glad you brought this up.
Yes, it's 10 ways to detox that has nothing to do with your body. And it's pretty, you know, stuff you've probably heard before, but all kind of in a list, like do the checklist, unfollowing people, detox your email inbox. I'm never going to do that. It's what it is. Clean your car. So anyway, you guys go check that out. I think it's really like a nice checklist to be like, is my life chaotic and not in a good way? Then you can reference this post. But anyway.
Oh, Ashley, I'm glad you brought that up. Okay. It was the last thing on our list and I forgot.
Yeah. We hit it all. So you can follow me at Therapy for Women is on Instagram. I'm also on TikTok sometimes. And you can check out my book. It's called Not Drinking Tonight. It's available everywhere books are sold. And my therapy practice is therapyforwomencenter.com.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for being here with us.
Yes. Thank you for kicking off the new year.
Absolutely.
And you guys know where to find us. New Year, same place, girlsgottaeatpodcast.com for show tickets and merchandise and everything else. You can follow us on Instagram at Girls Gotta Eat Podcast. I am Ash Hess. Raina is Raina.Greenberg. We are girls_gotta eat on Twitter and youtube.com/girls gotta eat. And we'll see you next week.